It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We'll be here for the next hour at 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. If you'd like to give us a call, we'll be here again talking Giants football and anything NFL related that you may want to throw out there as well. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. Today's media day, which means all the networks come into the facility and they go through all kinds of video and all kinds of still stores and thematic stuff that you're going to see during the broadcasts over the course of the NFL season. Giants social media department does their stuff. The players also do the kind of vignettes and so forth that you'll see in the stadium during timeouts. You know, for example, when there's a third down and you see somebody on the scoreboard get, oh, let's go, everybody scream, that kind of stuff. They do all that stuff today. Today is media day, not in the sense of newspaper or radio, TV media. It's, I guess, environmental media, production media. It's a different kind of media.
The broadcast media.
Broadcast media, yeah, but for the broadcast, not like for interview purposes.
Although John is...
He is doing some.
Interviewing a bunch of players.
That is true. John is the only real media person.
I don't know who he's talking to. When I came in the studio, I overheard some of the interviews he was doing with one or two guys.
Okay.
I don't know the whole list, but...
He always has an opportunity because it's a mandatory reporting day for all the veterans. Minicamp is tomorrow and Wednesday. There'll be practice sessions. And by the way, stay tuned for information on when we start the program. I do believe there's a chance we'll be moving the program on tomorrow or Wednesday because the practice schedule is going to cause some conflict. And I don't know if we've actually been able to pin down the start time of the program. So do please be alert to Twitter, whether it's the Giants Twitter, John's, myself. Are you on with me tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay. So stay tuned to our Twitter, at Giants WFAN, at Matt Citak, at Schmelk, at Giants.
It's definitely going to be later than normal, though.
Oh, it's going to be
Practice is 11 to 1.
No, I know it's going to be later.
And then players speak. So.
Yes, I just don't know what time.
Yeah.
I believe also Wednesdays may also change as well. It may not be as dramatic, but tomorrow's is going to be much, much later.
Yeah.
That much I can promise you because this 2-day minicamp is where it's mandatory. Everybody who's under contract is supposed to be here, and, you know, they'll do some more things on the field. So in any event, that's what's coming up the next couple of days. So for today, as we join you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health, keep getting better. Today we'll go back to one of our daily questions that we usually use here when we're on the program, and we don't have necessarily any hot news to discuss. Matt and I, maybe 2 weeks ago, asked you guys about defensive snaps and asked, who do you think will have the most defensive snaps for the Giants by the time the season is over? Well, today we're going to go to offense. Which Giants player on offense will take the most snaps by the time the season is over? We're not talking about opening day. That would be a little too easy. But by the time the 17-game schedule is done, and we're not talking playoffs, postseason, we're not dealing with that, who's going to have the most snaps on the offensive side of the ball? Would you like to go first?
You can go first.
I can go first. Okay. My pick is Jermaine Illuminor. I think over the course of his career, he has been a very steady presence, a guy who seems to have his wits about him. He understands what he's got to do to prepare himself. He does what he's got to do to be available. He understands that availability is perhaps the best value of a player. He can play both right tackle and left tackle, even though he's the starting right tackle on the team. He also has the ability to move inside and play one of the guard spots if necessary. So given his flexibility, given his performance last year as a starter, And I believe it's quite clear he'll be the opening day starter at right guard this season as well.
Right tackle.
At right tackle, yes, right tackle. I slipped there and said guard, didn't I?
Just wanted to clarify.
I'm glad you did. So given that, I do believe that he will take the most snaps for the Giants on offense this season. I did have a couple of other people who I thought about, but there are too many variables besides potential injury or injury history that made me waffle. And I finally came back to Jermaine Illuminor. I could not ignore his flexibility and his professionalism in terms of being able to get himself ready and prepared to be taking as many snaps as he possibly can. Now, if he says Greg Van Roten, I'm just going to drop out of my chair because Greg did it last year. He absolutely did it last year, and he would have been probably the last guy on offense that you would have put a box of ziti on, right? He would have been the last guy. He got here late during training camp. He's a veteran. He's been a part-time starter, part-time reserve his whole career.
He was oldest lineman on the team.
Oldest lineman, new to the team. Nah, Greg Van Roten has no chance. He turns out to be the only guy who takes every snap on offense last season. So if he says Greg Van Roten, I'm going to fall out of my chair.
I am not going to say Greg Van Roten. As much as as happy as I was about Greg Van Roten re-signing with the team and being back here, just because of now all the guys that the Giants have at guard, I think he's going to start the season as the starting right guard. But
he might.
But it's not guaranteed because, we have to see, what if Evan Neal comes out and looks absolutely dominant at guard in training camp and preseason. So he's not going to be my pick. I am going to stick to the offensive line, though.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with John Runyon.
Ooh.
I think John Runyon is going to have the most snaps of any player on offense. And last year, of course, he missed 4 games. He missed 4 games. Started the other 13. However, those were the first 4 games he missed due to injury in his entire NFL career.
This is true.
His first 4 years, he did not miss a single game. Now, as a rookie, he was coming off the bench. He was a reserve. But the next 3 years, he was a starter for the Packers the entire season. He came off the bench 1 game in 2021. Other than that, started 16 games that season and then 17 games in 2022 and 2023. Yes, he missed, a month last year, but clearly his track record shows that more often than not, he's able to stay on the field. And so I feel like for this question, it's like it's which offensive lineman do you think can stay healthy for the entire season? Because normally the quarterback would be the easy answer, but obviously this year with Russell Wilson being here on, the 1-year deal, Jackson Dart being drafted, at some point you'd think there's at least a decent chance that Jackson Dart takes over. And so Russell Wilson, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking him. Of course, as you and I have both said, it would be amazing if he starts every single game for the Giants because that means the offense is rolling and the team is winning a lot of games.
It's a good thing.
That'd be a very good thing. But if we're, putting a box of ZD on which guy we think will actually play the most snaps, I'm going to go with John Runyon, who has 3 seasons where he played, 95+% or 94% of the offensive snaps or more.
He's also played left and right guard, so he does have some flexibility. Not as much as Illuminor, but he does have it.
Yeah.
You did not mention Neighbors at all during your explanation. Did you consider him?
Not really. And it's nothing. It's not like that's not me saying I think he's gonna, have injuries or anything like that. It's just wide receivers don't get on the field for every single snap. Offensive linemen are on the field every single snap of a game, assuming they are healthy.
This is true.
And obviously, I would think offensive linemen, might have a slightly bigger chance of getting an injury that might force them to miss some time compared to a wide receiver. And I don't even know if that is actually true, but
it seems like it. It may not be true, but it does seem like it.
But, wide receivers, they just can't play 100% of the snaps. They need breathers. When you're out running all of these different routes every other play, you need to catch your breath. We see it. The best wide receivers in the league don't play 100% of the snaps. So that's the only reason why I didn't go with Malik. If we were to take out the offensive lineman, Malik probably would have then been my pick. But offensive linemen, just assuming they stay healthy, they're on the field 100% of the snaps.
Yeah, the quarterback situation, it can be sketchy given where the Giants are right now in their retooling. The other thing is, it's not going to be a running back because they've got some guys in the room. And so no one's going to take every snap at running back. It's not going to happen. We know that the tight ends, they've got some talent in the tight ends room. So I can guarantee you that it's not going to be a tight end. And then even if no one gets hurt in that room, none of those guys could possibly be the right answer. I don't see how.
No, because even with those tight ends that are on the roster right now, they kind of have different strengths. So depending on the circumstances or the down and distance is going to determine which of those guys is on the field.
Situational substitutions is going to take away somebody's snaps. They're not going to get 100%. Now, Neighbors did intrigue me, and I'll tell you why. I didn't go there. But I was intrigued by the potential of Malik Neighbors because he is, as it stands now, the only headache player the Giants have on offense. He is not just an explosive weapon who I'm sure that they're going to try to use more this year than even last year when he caught over 100 passes. It wouldn't shock me if he catches another 110 passes this year. Wouldn't shock me at all.
No.
Okay, especially with Russell Wilson throwing the ball. I think they're going to try to get him deeper. They want to get his yards per catch up. That was low last year. For a guy of his ability, that was a low yards per catch. He's got to get more than that. He's got to get more yak yardage. He's got to catch the ball further downfield as well. Both of those things have to happen for the Giants to be successful. So I think they're going to try to have him on the field as much as they possibly can. Does that mean there's going to be an occasional time where he gets a rest? Yeah. See, I think the question comes in here, Matt, when you try to figure this one out. Is any player on this team, even though Van Roten did it last year, is any player on this team going to play 100% of the offensive snaps? Is anybody going to do it?
I mean, I think it's tough to predict that any player on either side of the ball is going to play every single snap because we just know the nature of the sport. Guys get hurt. It's a very physical, violent sport. And not even only always getting injured, like guys just sometimes need a breather. So I would not go into a season predicting that anyone will play 100% of the snaps. Now, I think some guys have a good chance of getting close to that number, assuming, obviously, that there are no injuries.
Or a long shot like Greg Van Roten.
Again, that would not have been my prediction last year.
It's amazing. This is why it's kind of a fun game to contemplate a little bit. A fun answer to contemplate, I guess, is the proper word.
I do think, you can take your pick of the offensive lineman, but just given the nature of the position and the fact that they are on the field every single play, no matter what, that would, one of the offensive linemen would have to be my prediction.
Well, consider when the Giants were good, right? When they were good, when they won a Super Bowl in 2007 and were still contenders, that starting five along the offensive line started nearly 40 games in a row over 3 seasons, right? Over 2.5 seasons, I think, until Kareem McKenzie got hurt. I think he actually, please, Kareem, this is no disrespect, but I think when he came out of the lineup, he had gotten injured, and that broke the string of the Giants starting 5 championship offensive linemen. And at that point, that run was like the longest run in several decades of the NFL.
Yeah, you don't see it that often anymore. Guys get hurt all of the time. The fact that spanning 3 seasons, even though it wasn't, or 2 seasons.
It was 2.5, I think, is what it turned out to be.
The fact that they were able to keep the whole starting line for that long
it's crazy.
Is tremendous. I mean, last year, we were happy that the whole starting line played every snap the first 6 weeks together.
I know.
Obviously, we needed that to go a little bit longer than week 6, but
you think?
But even 6 weeks, given how the turnstile that the Giants have had at the offensive line in the previous few years, through 6 weeks, the fact that all 5 guys played every single snap together, we were like all amazed. That's just not something, we've seen in a while. It's not something you see often, period.
No doubt.
Now, obviously, we need that number to go beyond just 6 weeks this season. How about 16? 16 weeks sounds nice to me, with everyone resting in the final game of the season because we've already clinched a playoff spot. That would be amazing.
I don't have a problem with that. But in any event, all right, so that is our question of the day. Which Giants player do you think will take the most offensive snaps during the course of this season? Our lines are open at 201-939-4513, and we invite you to give us a call, and we'll talk about that. As far as the next couple of days, just to give people a little bit of an understanding, again, veteran minicamp, this is where now it becomes a little bit more important because these are the last 2 days that the players are going to have to run through plays, to work with the coaches on the field. Because as of Wednesday, when they let those guys free, that's it. They're not allowed back here until training camp begins sometime in late July. They're not supposed to have any on the field, any work with the coaches. They're not supposed to be here at all. There are rules in the league that regulate that. So you basically have like a 5-week, 6-week period, whatever it turns out to be, which is a black hole in the football schedule. Now the guys who are injured can still train in rehab. We understand that. That's different. They can get with the trainers. But otherwise, there's no football activity going on. And that's the way it is around the league. All right, that's it. Once your mini camp is over, nothing until training camp starts. So this is an important send-off for Brian Daboll, who has had, by his own admission, excellent attendance so far in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that. That's been a common theme the last couple of seasons in these off-season workout program, which is, again, it's completely voluntary, yet every year most of the team is here for pretty much all of these spring practices. So that is obviously, it's great to see. Now, I don't hold at quite as much importance on these next 2 days as it seems like you do, because it's kind of just a continuation of what the last 3 weeks have been. The Giants have had 3 weeks of OTAs where they were on the field practicing these team drills for the first time, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, and it was great. But there's no contact. And with this mini camp coming up this week, the next couple of days, there's still no contact allowed. So in my eyes, the most important thing for these next 2 days, which kind of somewhat similar to the last 3 weeks, but a little different because we already have now 3 weeks of work under, the team has it under their belt. Now, these next couple of days, just get through without anyone getting injured. Just get through these next 2 days healthy.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Get through healthy. Let everyone get into the, little summer break, rest their bodies, and we just need to get healthy going into training camp. Obviously, there were a couple of guys that throughout the spring didn't really do much, if anything. And, Brian Daboll has spoken that most of those guys, the bigger name players, it's not really anything of concern. It's just more of the team being cautious right now because it was only May/June. And obviously things don't really truly start mattering until, end of July, August, and then into September. So
right.
Just get through these next 2 days. Continue with some, good work. Get some good on-field work in, especially tomorrow. But just get through without anyone getting hurt. Let's get healthy. Get everyone in the right mindset going into this summer break. And then
that's why it's important.
And then let's reconvene in 5 weeks and really get this thing going.
Yeah, I think maybe you misunderstood and maybe I didn't explain it clearly enough. On the field wise, no. There's nothing different from the last several weeks. On the field stuff, they're just wrapping it up. It's important psychologically and mindset-wise because this is the coach and the coaching staff saying, okay, guys, this is what we accomplished during the spring. This is what we wanted to do. Excuse me. This is what we did do. And this is what we need you to do and be ready for when you come back and report at the end of July. There is a mission statement that needs to be taken seriously. And it needs to be taken into account as the guys go off on their own for the next 5 weeks or whatever it turns out to be. For some guys, it'll be just stay out of trouble. For other guys, it'll be, hey, listen, if you get a chance, you got a local high school kid, who can throw you passes, maybe you might want to work on some of those routes with that local high school kid. Go out to a field if you get a chance and throw the ball around a little bit. There can be various suggestions, and that's why it's important. It's different. It's not about the field stuff. I agree with you. The 2 practices from the mandatory minicamp are no different than anything they've been doing. But it's about taking it seriously and understanding that when you send these guys off, you want them to have a purpose and understand that they're not shutting it down per se. Yes, it's a summer vacation. It's required by the CBA. But you don't want them to totally forget or neglect their responsibilities as professional football players.
Oh, for sure.
That's why it's important.
I feel like these guys know that. Because yes,
Okay.
as you mentioned, it is,
It's been a while since you just got out of school.
Quote, unquote.
Me too.
That's true.
When you were 21, it was a little different.
No, that is true. And I get, it's quote unquote summer vacation, summer break. But, if any of these players don't, keep themselves in good shape, good physical condition, continue to work, it's not like it's just a complete 6-week vacation where you don't train at all or work out, if you're catching passes, throwing passes, whatever your position is, because you just put yourself behind the 8 ball when you come back here in 5 weeks then, if that's the case. And
no doubt.
And as we've heard countless players, coaches speak the last, almost 2 months really since the start of the offseason program, which was draft week, everything is a competition right now. No one is being handed a starting position anywhere on this roster. Everything is being earned, which is what you want. And if you let yourself get out of shape during this little summer break, you come back at the start of training camp,
you're making a mistake.
You're going to quickly fall behind the other guys at your position, because I can guarantee you those other guys weren't, quote unquote, kind of resting, slacking off, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe I don't know, maybe I'm giving too much credit. I don't know. You're right that it's been a while since I had a summer break, and I forgot the feeling of excitement about that time finally coming. But as you mentioned, these guys are, they're professional athletes, and a lot, not all of them, but most of them have done this at least once before. Obviously, there's the rookie class with the undrafted guys and the draft class, but everyone else it's not their first rodeo, and I would hope that those older guys, and by older guys, I mean even guys that were just drafted last year that have 1 year of experience under their belt, I hope they are, sharing some words of wisdom with the younger guys who might be a little more inclined to lean into the vacation part, like you mentioned.
I'm sure they are being told. I'm sure that the veteran players are also trying to guide them, but take it from someone who's seen enough of these days. When these guys come back that first day at the end of July, there used to be guys, and not as much anymore. I think guys are a little more conscientious today than they were years ago. However, there will be guys that you're going to see doing the gassers, the conditioning drills. They do gassers, who are lagging at the back, and the coach is not going to be happy about it. It's going to happen. There will be some laggers. Now, what you don't see very much of anymore are the guys who literally have to stop and can't finish. That doesn't happen so much anymore. But I've seen too many guys over the years who have. They will stop. They'll just go to the ground. They've had enough. They're done. They can't finish. Guys who start hurling in the middle of the gassers because they are so much out of shape that they're not right, and they get out there and it's an 85-degree day the first day that they come back, and they're not prepared for it, and then all of a sudden you find their cookies are on the ground. I've seen it too many times. You got to take the instruction seriously. Trust me on that.
Yeah,
most guys seem to. I think you're right. Most guys seem to. But all it takes is just a couple of guys who don't. And the coach's ire is going to get raised in a hurry. Believe me.
Yeah, and no one wants to be, the
You don't want
the
no,
story on social media.
No.
Oh, look how out of shape
No.
this guy showed up.
That's the last thing you want.
Because we see it every year across the league with various teams. You know, someone shows up and they are visibly, let's just call it chunkier than the last time we saw them. No one wants to be that guy.
It's the last thing you want.
Not only
is to be that guy because, well, now, fortunately, that first day, I believe, on conditioning drills, I don't believe the regular media is here that day.
On the very first day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I
not.
don't think so.
I don't think so either.
We haven't gotten any schedule yet, but
They used to be. Years ago, it used to be. And even in the last couple of years, either they don't get in that first day of the conditioning drills, or they don't get to see the conditioning drills, and they don't get to go out on the field until the players actually have something on to go on the field. I think the gassers are done earlier,
yeah, I think
right?
the latter, what you
Yeah,
just
they
said,
don't
I
get
think
to
is-
see them anymore,
No.
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because there were some ugly sights in some of those gasser drills that I've seen over the years. No, because that's like getting posterized in an NBA game. It's like really embarrassing, big time. So anyway, that's where we're at. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Please give us a call. We'll be here until 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll talk Giants football with you. By the way, I know John is doing some more interviews today. Do we have anything going up on the Huddle?
Yes, one went up this morning earlier.
Okay.
Chris, I always mispronounce his last name, Bizignano?
Bizignano.
Giants Insider?
Yeah.
Yes. John interviewed Chris.
Diehard Red Sox fan, by the way, for those of you who just want to throw some.
I'm sure he must be thrilled after yesterday's trade.
I'm sure he is. Hey, they beat the Yankees 3 in a row, so I'm sure they're pretty happy anyway.
That's true. But yeah, John interviewed Chris. Chris talked about a little bit of what he saw during OTAs. Talked about some of the different position groups on the team. So that just went up today. And then I think Pearson and John mentioned that the next former coach of the Giants draft class, I'm not sure which one. I don't know if this week is the Penn State coach.
Okay.
I think it might be.
The D-line coach,
Carter
right?
is D-line coach.
Yeah.
I think it's this week.
I think
if
that
not,
is.
it's coming up soon. There's a different one, but
Okay.
throughout, I don't know. A couple of them have already gone up, and over the next couple of weeks, the final ones will be going up. I know John was still waiting to talk to someone from Ole Miss about obviously Jackson Dart. But yeah, so I believe that would leave the Penn State D-line coach.
Okay.
Talking about Abdul for this week.
All right, very cool. So as always, the Giants Huddle is available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, as well as Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. I invite you to check those out, as well as Giants TV, which is also available. It's a free app. Get all your highlights and everything else on there as I try to get the stupid document up again because I just blew it out where our callers are. Do you have it up?
Yes.
There you go. It's Aiden.
Aiden
All right.
in Florida.
So Aiden, yeah. Well, once John takes that next call and throws it on hold, we will go to Aiden. So Aiden, thanks for taking the time and wait. See, I'm very transparent here, folks. I break down the third wall. You guys are my friends. You're sitting here at the bar stool with us. Of course, we're just having a regular soda, but we're sitting here at the bar stool with us. I'd let you know what's going on. I blew out the rundown sheet on my computer, so now I got to go back and I got to find it. Aiden's going to be the first one on the program once John's ready to go. John, throw him up. Aiden, you're first on the show. Hello.
Hey.
What's
Hi.
up, Aiden?
I just wanted to ask some questions about the quarterback room.
Go right ahead.
So, you know that we have 4. So there's Russell Wilson, Jameis, Jackson, and Tommy.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, well, common sense, that Russell's going to be starting week 1. But let's say first 6 games, or whenever their bye week was, I think it was like 7 or 8. But let's say they are like 0-6, 0-7. Do you think after their bye week, if they have no wins, they're going to bring in Jackson?
Well, first of all, the Giants have the latest possible bye week this
Correct.
year. So the bye week is not actually until week 14.
Oh, okay.
It is way down the
Yeah,
road.
it is the last possible week you can have a bye week.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that
Would you like
changes
to
your
revise
question
your
at all.
question?
Well,
Or do you want to
let's
stick
I'll
with
stick
0
with
and
that.
7 and use that as a premise?
Yeah. Like, what if they go 0 and 7? Do you think that they're gonna bring in Jackson?
Well, let's just say this. Jackson Dart's not going to even touch the field until the Giants coaches think he's ready to compete, because it would be unfair to him, it would be unfair to his teammates, and it would be unfair to this organization to throw him out there before he at least has a reasonable chance to succeed. That's first and foremost, no matter what happens with this team's record and the other quarterbacks. If they don't deem him ready to go out there and compete and at least have a reasonable chance, they're not going to throw him to the wolves. They will not do that. End of story, no matter what game it is.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And, if the Giants were to start off 0 and 7, that sounds like a situation that may not be the best to throw your, first-round rookie quarterback who you hope will eventually be your franchise quarterback. I don't know. If the Giants are 0 and 7, that probably means things aren't going too well on offense. And so I don't know if you want to then put your rookie quarterback back there, because if Russell Wilson can't find any sort of success in that offense, behind the line with these weapons, and he's been obviously doing this way longer than Jackson Dart. I don't know how much of a chance Jackson Dart would then have to succeed right away. So for me, I would not put Jackson in that situation. If you want to make some sort of change after this hypothetical 0 and 7 start, I would probably instead rather turn to Jameis and see if he maybe would be some sort of, firecracker that gets the offense going. Obviously, we don't know how the season will go at all, but typically when you have that rookie quarterback that doesn't start the season as your week 1 starter, the time that the coaching staffs like to get him in would typically be following the bye week. Now, again, Giants have a very late bye week, but in theory, they could wait until then and then put Jackson in for that final month of the season if the Giants aren't, pushing for a playoff spot at that time, because those last 4 games are also, not that it's an easy part of the schedule, because there's no 4-game stretch of the schedule that's easy at all, but it's probably the easiest of any 4-game stretch of this schedule. I mean, and just, I know you threw out week 7 or, week 8 after an 0 and 7 start as just a random number, but week 8, the Giants travel to Philadelphia, and I certainly do not want Jackson Dart's first start to be on the road against the reigning Super
Welcome
Bowl
to the
champions.
NFL.
That would probably not be the best time to throw him out there for the first time. But granted, looking at the schedule, there really is no soft landing spot to get him in, unless you're talking about after the bye week, because you at least have 2 back-to-back home games at that point.
So we've both explained in rather wordy terms the answer to your question is no.
Yeah.
What's next?
I just have one more question. So, I forgot which year he is, but Arch Manning. I forgot if he's going to be a junior either this upcoming year, the year after. I think it's not this year, but the one after. Do you think that the Giants will pursue him even if Jackson's still developing, or they stick with Russell Wilson with an extension or something? Do you think that they will still try to pursue Arch Manning?
Well, to start, Arch Manning is going to be a junior this season. So technically, if he chooses to, he could enter next year's NFL draft. Now, I say could and maybe because nobody knows what's going through his mind.
No.
His 2 uncles who had pretty successful NFL careers, they both decided to go back to school for their senior years. And I feel like, the Manning family might have put some, benefits towards actually finishing your time at your school, graduating with a degree. And also just with the increase in NIL money, he's going to would be making almost just as much money going back to Texas for his senior year as he would being, a top NFL draft pick. So it's not guaranteed that he goes into the draft this upcoming year or the year after. All of that being said, right now, if I had to answer your question yes or no, I would say no. I don't think the Giants would pursue him, only because They just traded up in the draft for Jackson Dart, and the plan, at least, is to try to grow and develop him to hopefully have him take over as the starting quarterback and the franchise quarterback of the future. If Arch Manning goes into next year's draft, that's not really giving Jackson much of a chance to develop into that quarterback if you immediately just turn the page on him and try to get Arch. And not only that, but the Giants would have to be pretty high up in the draft order to have a chance at Arch Manning, assuming he does go into the draft next year.
I'll second everything he just said. Now, you sound a lot younger than Arch Manning. What is your curiosity about him? Why are you so concerned with trying to get Arch Manning here?
Just watching his gameplay. I feel like his gameplay has been like, I know he hasn't had much, but he just shows signs of like a bright future, and I've always been fascinated by him.
All right. Well, I hope you get a chance to root for him wherever he plays in the NFL, but I do tend to lean toward where Matt is. I'm not so sure he's going to be coming out after one more season. I could very easily see him going with the family plan and playing out his eligibility.
Yeah, that would make sense.
All right. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thanks for answering my question.
All right.
Thank you, Aiden. Now, Arch Manning, he's only did not play much, has not played much so far.
Which is why that year could be valuable to him.
100%. I mean, unless he comes out and has, like a Joe Burrow in his final year at LSU type season.
And we don't want to put a ceiling on him. Maybe he does.
He easily could.
Does.
It would not shock me at all, because from what we've seen of him, he throws the ball, pretty similarly to his uncles, but he is, and no offense to Peyton or Eli, but he is at least 100 times more athletic than the two of them combined. So if he can put it all together, obviously that has the potential of a great career, but he has a long, long, long way to go before that's really in the discussion. Let him start a full year at Texas and see how he does before we start, crowning him the next whoever you want to call
personally, if I had my way, we would never mention his name on this show for the next 2 years, period. But I know that's not going to happen.
That's probably not going to happen. No. Unless Jackson Dart gets in there and, claims that franchise quarterback title.
That could stop it.
I don't know if it would even stop it fully. Probably not.
Okay. By the way, we have another caller online, and I want to make special note of this. It says he is from Switzerland. So, Frank, you're on line 3, and you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Matt and Paul, no problem.
Are you really in Switzerland right now, or are you transplanted?
Yeah. No, I've been here for almost 10 years. But
very cool.
I'm a huge Giants fan from
Thank you.
when I was a kid. And
love to hear
even
that.
went to the Giants game here in Germany last year.
That's awesome.
So, and just to mention on the Arch Manning thing, I think if the Saints tank it this year, that discussion will be over. He might actually go next year in the draft. I thought that was a great comment.
Who knows, right?
Hey, you know what? Yesterday I was listening to, I do it every year, go back and watch the 2 Super Bowls from 2007 and whatnot. And I was watching basically the Giants team at that point and what they were with the pass rush and, the better offensive line that they had that we haven't had for a couple of years. And just kind of seeing the dynamics of the team that just didn't make mistakes. And they made those couple of plays that basically got them from a wild card position into the Super Bowl. And I know it's being optimistic, but I kind of see that a little bit with this team. That it has the talent, it has some things, and if they just don't make mistakes, that they could go quite far. And I wanted to hear what you guys thought about that.
Well, I think the first thing you have to consider when you look at that 2017, even if you believe that this defense can reach a similar level, and I know we're all optimistic about the talent on this defense. They should be a top 10 defense if they all play to their capabilities. That should not be much of an issue. But offensively, now you just watched that tape, right? You know some of the guys they had on offense on that team. You had Toomer, and you had Burris, and you had Eli Manning. And you had an offensive line that played its butt off that season. You know, after being called the worst offensive line in the NFL at the start of the season by Joe Theismann, they wound up being the best offensive line by the time the season was over. Are these things you think this team can match? Can this team match that running game? You know, think about the guys who are in the backfield. Can this team match those guys? I mean, maybe. But I don't know that I put boxes of ZD on it.
When you practice against a pass rush that is as talented as the team that it is, when you get on the field, that offensive line starts seeing it a bit easier. And where you, just like you said, it was not a very good offensive line back in the day. But they became one of the best ones because they practiced against some of the best pass rushers in the entire league at the time.
No doubt.
And I wonder if that could actually occur and we might actually get an offensive line.
I think you're asking a lot from this group of players. If they could be even 2/3 of what that line was, I'd sign up for that tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I just absolutely love talking Giants with you guys, and I watch you all the time and absolutely love you. So thanks a lot, Matt and Paul.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you.
Just wanted to call in.
Appreciate it. Definitely call back, even though you might long distance charges. I'm assuming
that's very cool though to want to get in on the program. You know, Matt, I don't know how often you pop in those games, but I confess, you know, no more than 2 years goes by, and I'm popping that game in again.
I thought you were going to say 2 weeks.
No, it's not that often. But that's because sometimes it turns up on NFL Network on a rerun, and I'll see it there, so I don't have to pop in the DVD. I have it on DVD, by the way. I mean, it's not on a link.
Surprised me.
It's on a DVD. Okay, so, and you watch, and I will tell you what it usually does do to me. It makes me realize as I shake my head about how far the team has fallen, because that 2007 team, let me not get those syllables, jumbled together. The 2007 team that stunned the Patriots with that historic victory in Arizona was just one special group of guys. So many guys were underrated on that club. So many guys made significant contributions that a lot of people never would have thought to be able to do so. I mean, when you think about guys like James Butler and Jabril Wilson, the starting two safeties on that team, nobody would have said to you before the season that those guys are going to be part of a Super Bowl championship starting lineup. Nobody would have said that.
About David Tyree.
David Tyree making the catch that he made in the game.
More than the catch, just his contributions as
no
a
question.
special teamer, which always gets overlooked when talking about him.
Well, he made a Pro Bowl.
I know. He was an amazing special teams player that happened to make the greatest catch ever. But
I mean, yeah, we all knew Antonio Pierce was a heck of a player. We knew what the defensive line was. We knew what Eli was. We knew what Toomer and Burris were. We knew what Shockey was. But then he gets hurt. And all of a sudden, he's not there for the stretch run. And a lot of people thought, oh, well, that's going to be a big deal. It's going to hurt Eli. Well, somehow the Giants got it done, didn't they?
Yeah, because they had a quarterback that helped elevate the guys around him. And that's been something that, quite frankly, has been missing here since Eli retired. And obviously the Giants are hoping that they're going to get back to that this year with the totally revamped quarterback room. Having a guy that doesn't need the guys around him to step up and make plays in order to make him better, but will help those guys make plays themselves and help just elevate everyone's game. And just going back to Frank's question for a second, I don't think it's fair to compare this team to those two Super Bowl teams.
It's really not.
Because obviously those are two of the best, greatest teams in this franchise's history.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I will say, though, is looking at the postseason for both of those two Super Bowl winning teams that defeated the Patriots. In all 4 games of each Super Bowl run, the Giants defense did not allow more than 20 points.
Correct.
They had one game in each season where they allowed 20, and every other game was 17 points or fewer that the Giants defense gave up. Now, of course, they had Eli Manning under center. That 07 team had Plaxico Burress, the Brandon Jacobs, Ahmad Bradshaw in the running game. Like, there were certainly pieces there, but the defense really, I feel like, helped lead those teams to those Super Bowls. And now even the 2011 season, throughout the whole season, the offense was a lot better than the defense. The offense was in the top 10 in both points and yards, while the defense was in the bottom 10 in both of those categories. But come playoff time, the defense really stood up, and especially in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. And again, I don't want to compare this year's team to those two teams, but I think it's been pretty obvious since, how the offseason transpired, what we've seen the last couple of weeks on the field. If this year's team is going to have success, it's going to be, I'm not going to say squarely because, but a big part of it is going to be because of the success of the defense, and especially the guys up front, this pass rush. I wrote about it in today's Cover 3 that's coming out on Giants.com this afternoon, but this is the potential to be the best pass rush the Giants have had since those Super Bowl winning pass rushes.
Sure.
Again, there were no pads, no contact during OTAs, but some plays, we were standing next to each other on the sidelines for a lot of those OTAs. There were plays where, and again, Dexter Lawrence wasn't even out there on the field for most of the OTAs, but Brian Burns, Kayvon, and Abdul Carter were all three of them lined up, with one of them lined up on the inside. And we called it, Dan and I called it the party at the quarterback, because Russell Wilson would call hike, and within 2.5 seconds, all three of those guys would be in his face, and in a game situation would have had an easy sack. Again, take it with a grain of salt, because there's not real contact between the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman. But, those three guys, and especially Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, they showed some spin moves where even if the offensive lineman was allowed full contact, would have had no chance at stopping him. And it was nothing, that's not saying anything, towards the offensive line. It's just Abdul Carter and Brian Burns especially, their quickness has the potential to make this an absolutely elite pass rush. And that's going to obviously just help every level of the defense. If you have a pass rush that's going to get after the quarterback in 2 seconds, most plays, that's obviously going to be a big boost to your linebackers and a big boost to your secondary. And if your defense is getting a boost and playing well overall, guess what? That's obviously going to have benefits to your offense as well. Even if your offense isn't an elite unit, having an elite defense makes your offense better, as we've spoken about before. So I don't want to compare this team to those two teams, because that's just completely not fair to anyone. But if we're just talking about the bones of the roster, again, it's June, but right now this defense certainly has the potential to be an elite unit, which who knows how far that could take this team if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, when you consider the three bona fide edge guys, and then Dexter Lawrence, who has the ability to crush the pocket from the front, what is a quarterback supposed to do? If you think about it, he's got to worry about not just the edge, not just the front, not just potentially the A gap or the B gap, but he's also got to worry about guys who are stunting and coming free. You see, that to me is the one part that does actually hold some water, because I don't believe in sacks during the spring. I don't. You're telling the offensive lineman, basically, we're going to put handcuffs on you and tie your ankles together, and we're going to tell you to go out there and take snaps. How are you supposed to block anybody? You're not allowed to. So I don't really put much stock in snaps during the spring camp and the OTAs. I don't think it's worth a whole lot. But what you can get a feel for, and this is where I will agree with you and Dan and John, what you can get a feel for is the athleticism and the quickness of those edge rushers. You can get a feel for, wow, this guy has some real tools and has some real speed to his game. I project when he's in a game in September with pads on and he's going up against a real 340-pound lineman, I project he probably has enough speed and quickness to give him trouble. I get the projection that you guys are doing. It's still a projection. It's not real. So I take it with a grain of salt more than you guys do. But I agree, these guys certainly have a projection that's pretty exciting. I agree with that. I would also say this. If you are banking, okay, as a offensive coordinator on playing the Giants and thinking that these guys are going to be in the same spot all the time, you're making a serious mistake. Because not only can the two edge guys flop at will, Carter can play interior, he can play on the exterior. Dexter Lawrence could be head up on as a nose tackle, or he could be shaded into either of the A-gaps if he wants to be. There are a number of different variations that they can use with those four guys. All four of them could wind up being headache players by the time the season is over.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of it in spring. I'm not going to talk about where guys
we're not
were
gonna
lining
do
up,
that.
but
We're not going to do that.
But I mean, we saw that. Like, it's opposing offenses are going to come in with a game plan, and from what we saw in bits this spring, Shane Bowen is going to have these guys on their toes because opposing offensive lines are never going to know for sure where each of these guys is going to be lined up.
And it's four guys.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
again,
you can extend it.
You can move Dexter. You don't have to put him smack on the center. You can move
For sure.
him.
And it's even when some of those guys, come off for a breather, the guys that are going to be coming in to replace him for a handful of snaps, those guys are versatile as well. You're not going to know where Chauncey Golston's going to be lined up.
No, you're not.
Darius Alexander can line up many different spots across the defensive line. Like, there are not many players the Giants have up front right now where when they're on the field, opponents are going to know almost for sure, like, all right, we know this guy's going to be in this spot. There's an incredibly versatile group of guys up front that we've spoken about it at length for months now, that Shane Bowen is going to obviously have to figure out the best way to get creative and just deploy them in, as many different ways as possible, because it's going to keep opposing offenses on their toes, and opposing quarterbacks are just never going to feel comfortable back there.
See, that's why all of the extra depth that the Giants added in the front seven becomes so incredibly valuable. It's not just that they upgraded the talent level of the front seven. It's about they've expanded the playbook because of the usage that they can put forth on these guys. That's what it is. It's going to mean the sum of the parts is going to be greater than the individual parts because of the way you can deploy them.
Yeah,
It adds to their danger.
100%. I mean, last year, I'm not going out on a limb by saying anytime basically that Dexter Lawrence came off the field prior to his injury, the defense, somewhat took a bit of a hit. And they kind of struggled on those plays that Dexter was not on the field. Now, obviously, you take an all-pro that's one of the best at his position off the field. You expect at least a little bit of a drop-off, of course. But now, with the pieces that the Giants have, not only behind Dexter, but as the three edge rushers as well, and, at various spots around the defense, you're not going to see that as big of a drop-off when, your star players have to come off for a breather for a play or two. It's not going to happen as often.
We talked about something the other day at OTAs. You probably remember when I think I said to you, and Dan Salomon as well on the practice field, I said, guys, people think they saw a lot out of Brian Burns last year, but he was badly beaten up for most of the season, and he still made first alternate to the Pro Bowl. Brian Burns impressed the living heck out of me last year. He is a really, really good player.
He might be the player that I am most looking forward to seeing this year. Like, of course, I'm very excited to see Abdul Carter and what he can do because we've never seen it before. But I don't think we have seen Brian Burns even come close to what his ceiling could be. And I think if he stays healthy, if those other guys up front, if they can stay relatively healthy, I feel like we might see that version of Brian Burns this year.
And he, by the way, is a two-way player. If you did notice, he plays the run too. He's not just an all-out, I'm going after the quarterback kind of guy, which is what's so good about these other guys. Carter will also play the run. He's much more effective as a pass rusher, but because of his off-ball linebacker time at Penn State, he understands how to play the run, and he's more than willing to do it. And we know Thibodeau, who I still believe is one of the game's most underrated run stoppers off the edge in today's NFL. I still believe that. You talk to Carl Banks, he'll tell you. Kayvon Thibodeau does a really good job of holding the edge against the run. Really, really good job. He just doesn't get a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, and the fact that all of those guys you just mentioned are also, at the very least, decent against the run, if not decent to very good, it just allows you to keep all those guys on the field for as many plays as possible. You don't have to worry about, this guy's really only a pass rusher. This is a running down. We got to take him off the field. These guys can stay on the field. Obviously, their condition will play a big part in how many actual snaps they play.
No doubt.
It's tough for edge rushers to play 100% of the snaps like we see at some other positions, but the fact that they are all pretty good to very good against the run allows Shane Bowen to just keep his best 11 guys on the field as much as possible, which is obviously what you want.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm anxious to see also Tamon Fox, who has bulked up. I don't know if you've noticed his upper body. It's pretty obvious. He's stronger. He's bigger. He's bulkier. Tamon Fox right now is the fourth of the stand-up edge rushers. I know Golston is going to be on the edge. I think Golston's more of a defensive end myself than he is a stand-up edge rusher. But, you want to have a little bit of depth in there because you're not going to play all three of those edge rushers all the time. Somebody's going to have to come off the field sometime. And
we don't know what the status is of Victor Dimukiji. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I'm not even 100% sure.
But yeah, we don't. Yeah, so Tamon Fox, especially once training camp starts, he's going to have a great opportunity.
He really is. He's shown some flashes, enough to be here for 2 years.
I was going to say, there's a reason why he keeps on being brought back.
Yeah.
It's not just because, we just need another body in the room. Like, clearly the coaching staff sees something in him. And look, he's going to have an opportunity this year, for sure. I mean, especially because we obviously know who the top three edge rushers on the Giants are going to be, but beyond them, it's a competition. Spots are up for grabs, and those guys, because of how solidified they are in their roles, they're not going to need as many reps and as many snaps during training camp in the preseason. So guys like Tamon Fox are going to have an amazing opportunity to prove themselves.
I agree.
And again, there's a reason why he's now coming back for year 3 after being signed as an undrafted rookie free agent a couple of years ago.
Folks, I want to remind you before we kick it out of here, you can take your fandom to the next level with a Giants season ticket membership and catch all the action at MetLife Stadium coming up in 2025. With a membership, you will also stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days, with exclusive member access and benefits. To learn more about a New York Giants season ticket membership, visit giants.com/tickets. That'll do it for today's program. We don't have confirmation of tomorrow's show yet, Matt. I haven't gotten any messages.
Nope.
I haven't gotten any. Let's see here. From John? No, I still have nothing from John.
I'm sure he'll let us know.
He will.
He's done in the field.
Folks, at Schmelk, at Giants WFAN, at Matt Citak, at Giants.com. Those are the 4 key Twitter items that you want to keep track of. We will get you the time of tomorrow's show as soon as we can. We will have a live 1-hour program. We will recap the first day of the mandatory minicamp as well as the press availabilities. And, of course, also take your phone calls at 201-939-4513.
We're going to be hearing from the assistant coaches for the first time all offseason today and tomorrow.
Outside of the coordinators, which we've heard from already.
The positional coaches. I forgot which day is offensive and which day is defensive. But between tomorrow and Wednesday, we will be hearing from all of the position coaches from both sides of the ball. So that'd be nice to hear from them and see what they think about how these guys have been progressing this spring.
Well, that'll do it for today. You've been watching Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.